Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to episode 6 of Off the Clock podcast. I'm Rick Gorman, and I'm here with my partner, Scott Chandler. We're very excited about episode 6 because after threatening this for the first 5 episodes, we are bringing on our first guest, which we'll introduce shortly. Our first guest has a really good story to tell. He's a really good friend of ours, so I know you're going to love hearing that. So as we usually start off every podcast, we'll do a little bit of like, how's your life in retirement in the past week? So, Scott, welcome back to the podcast. What's new?
Hey, good to be back. Hey, one thing I'll note this week is that I got a decent amount of feedback, more feedback than I have since we started from the group of people that give me feedback. So one thing they said, a constant theme based on what the feedback was that you and I need to give each other more room to finish our thoughts. They said sometimes you get too sarcastic, sometimes you're too quick to jump on one another. Just finish your thoughts. There were a couple of things, specific examples they gave. One was regarding the hiking that we did. I think I mentioned I was going up the hill with my grandsons, and you said something. Then there was another time where you said you only go uphill, and I said you can only go uphill. So, and they were a little frustrated with those comments. They said, let people finish their thoughts. So what do you think of that? What's your immediate reaction to that?
Love the feedback. As I told you, the good, bad, ugly, I don't really care. It's really good for us to get it as we evolve this podcast. I would say to that comment, I don't disagree with it. I think what we're trying to do with this podcast is have an authentic conversations, and unfortunately, this is the way we do have our conversations, where we probably interrupt a little bit. We probably need to be more cognizant of that. I will do my very best today on that. Definitely. I hear people on that. They want to, whatever the story we're telling, I think they want to hear it through without being interrupted by either one of us. So I am very good with that.
Great. And the other feedback I got was regarding the commute. Some people said, commuting can be really tough and it can grate on you over time. And they said, they asked me, does Rick have a commute? Can he relate to that? And I said, he really doesn't. I go, early in his career, he went from Methuen to North Andover. Then it changed, and he went from Lawrence to North Andover. And the thought process was that, especially prior to COVID, when people couldn't work from home, the commute would actually factor into a lot of people's decision whether or not to retire. I mean, that was actually a pretty significant factor. All things being equal, I probably would have retired earlier had I had to commute into Boston every day. When COVID hit, I could work from home. That didn't become an issue anymore. So I think people want us to recognize that we each come from different spots with that. Like, you didn't commute, I did commute, and it's a real thing. It's a real pain point. So that's just another point that people made.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I've always said one of the best parts of my job was my commute. So in Methuen, I had it down, with the exception of the 9 months that I walked to work. I had my commute down to basically about 10 or 12 minutes from Methuen. And then when I moved to Lawrence, if I didn't get stuck at the Sutton Street train bridge, I would be at my office in 5 minutes. So, yeah, I definitely get that. I think where I was going with, I have driven with you, and people have driven with you, your wife more than anybody. But I'm talking even about you even driving to even a short place. You're what I would say, I think you used the word emotional, I used a stressful dance. Maybe that's the fallout from decades of commuting. Maybe it is. But, yeah, I'm lucky I didn't have that, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think it might, like I said last week, it might be PTSD from that. But and again, I readily admit there's a piece of me that's like that. And can you just talk for 1 second? I know we have a guest here that's anxiously waiting to come on. But why did you walk to work for X amount of weeks?
Yeah, I don't have a problem. Everybody who's close to me knows the story. So the interesting part, from my front door in Methuen to the front door of the youth center was 6.2 miles. So I decided to do a 10K. So reality being is I needed to lose weight. It's the first time in my life. My son had graduated college, and I saw a picture of myself and said, whoa, I got to do something here. So I basically started walking. That was an experience in itself in terms of, from Methuen, I had to walk through Lawrence up into North Andover, People thought one lady thought I had a DUI. Another lady thought that, for some reason I had lost my mind. Everybody from North Andover that saw me commuting stopped to try to give me a ride, and I told them I didn't want a ride. So I think it kind of bizarrely made me look like I had lost it maybe. But what I ended up doing was losing 30 pounds, which was really cool for me. And I did it for about 9 months. In the summer months, I actually did it both ways, which was pretty cool. So yeah, it was more of a conscientious, I'm going to lose weight. This is the best way to do it. I have a flexible schedule. But the comments throughout the 9 months was pretty hysterical. So yeah, that's why I did that, Scotty.
Now, did you shuffle or did you walk?
Oh, I had a very good clip going. Very good clip.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows me knows I love to walk. So I don't know if I would suggest that for everybody, but yeah, that's the reason on that. And the big woman in Lawrence who actually said to me after watching me a couple of weeks, she yelled out in broken English, DUI, and so I had to tell her, no, I did not get a DUI. So yeah, that's the reason for that. But hey, listen, really appreciate the feedback from people. Bring it back. We can only get better. We've always said from the beginning, we're not experts, and we're not saying that we're Joe Rogan expert podcasters. We're just trying to get better every day. So besides the feedback, what was last week like for you?
Oh, it was a good week. Nothing really significant. I mean, I think the biggest thing outside my comfort zone goes to my wife. She gets points for this because she got a call on Sunday night from somebody who was going to Spain the next day and their husband had injured their back and he couldn't make it. So she gets a call on Sunday night and said, "Hey, do you want to go to Spain with me tomorrow?" And my wife was like, she's never been. Well, when she was a kid, she was in Europe, but in her adult life, she hasn't been over there. She goes, "Holy crap! But yeah, I think I will." So it was a whirlwind 24 hours, and off she went to Spain. So I thought that was pretty cool, And obviously, you can only do that if you're retired because you're not going to have that flexibility if you're not. But I give her kudos for that. So she's over in Spain biking away.
Yeah, I saw the Facebook post. She had a nice adult beverage at Logan Airport, getting ready to board the flight. And you've always said you have no interest to go to Europe. So does this let you off the hook now that she's getting to go?
If she loves it, I think I'm in trouble. And that's not totally true. I've always wanted to see Switzerland, right? For some reason, the Matterhorn, the Alps, all that stuff, right? I think that'd be pretty cool. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Nice. All right. Anything else up with you before I give a quick review for myself?
No, and if we circle back to it, we circle back to it. But I did have another Y sauna experience related to the podcast. But let's talk about that later.
Let's see if we have time for that. I will tell you the reviews I'm getting is Wildcats in general love the sauna stories. A few other people cringe by the sauna stories, so we'll have to kind of gauge that. But yeah, if we have time today, we'll get another sauna story, I guess.
Yeah, I think in the perfect world, we actually do a broadcast from the sauna, from the Y sauna. I think that would get quite a crowd.
Yeah. And we'll bring our guests back for that, too. So, all right. So, quickly from me, last week was an interesting week. In fact, it kind of probably was a week that I'm probably trying at this point, looking to have. So, it was a combination of, retired, no clock type thing. But then I actually was able to do a few different things that I actually still want to stay passionate about. So, last Saturday, got up early, got on a boat up at Lake Winnipesaukee. They rushed me over to a youth conference where I was a keynote speaker and ran a workshop on leadership. Spent the day over on Bear Island up in Winnipesaukee, which was great. And then I had a lot of free time. Took a trip back up to Maine for a night, and then I was on Tuesday night. I did a training for the new staff at North Andover Youth Center, summer staff, 130 kids. Spent 4 hours running a workshop. Had a great time doing that. We're doing part 2 next week. And for me, it was like, hey, getting back in the game a little bit. I will say, though, in both things, I was actively involved when I was working. And now I was more like the guest, the keynote speaker, the trainer or whatever. And it's, there was that thing like, well, you're not the guy anymore. You're just a guy they brought in to do some stuff. So, yeah, it was an interesting week, combination of no clock, but also, hey, getting back in the game on some stuff. So I was pretty pumped about that.
Nice. That's awesome.
All right, so looks like another good week in the life of retirement and being off the clock. So now we want to bring in our guest who's been waiting patiently. This is a guy that we've known for a long time. I've actually known a little longer than Scott because he actually, in one of his positions, I met him as a guy delivering water to my old youth center. And that's how he got the name Waterboy. You've heard the name Waterboy a lot in the first 5 podcasts. He is famous, so we'll be hearing from him on that. And then, I got to know him and we played basketball, and the rest is history. But he'll fill you in a lot. But a little background, John, as part of a military family, lived in certain parts of the world. But we're going to start off with his high school careers in Millinocket, Maine, where he actually decided that he wanted to go into a possible music career. He graduated the famous Millinocket High School and then headed down to Boston to Berklee College of Music. And then from there got into which I'm really interested in taking a deep dive into it because I lived, when he was at Berklee, I lived in Boston myself, up in Beacon Hill. So the music scene was really great during that time, and John was really in the thick of that. So, and then he made some decisions, which he'll talk to us about, obviously raising a family, and then coming full circle with music being back very important in the last few years. And I'm interested to know if music's going to be a big part in his retirement. So please, without further ado, let's welcome John Waterboy Brunette.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Rick and Scotty. Happy to be on the podcast. I've been sleepless nights just wondering when I was going to get on. I've listened to most of the podcasts, and I still came. So I mean that's a plus, right? I wish I would have known that there's a 27-minute intro, because then I might have slept in a little bit. That's so any future guests, just kind of keep that in mind.
Thanks for coming on, John. Let's wrap it up.
After all, and that was the other thing. I think it's an interesting point. You're getting feedback about let people finish a point, but I mean, how long of a period can somebody ramble? Like, I feel like I'm already rambling and nobody's cutting me off, and that's just unusual for us.
Well, I was going to cut you off, but I was thinking about the feedback.
Yeah, I think don't overthink it. Just jump in, and then I think the person can. That'd be my advice. That's my feedback. I've never given you guys much feedback. That'd be it.
Let's talk about your musical career.
Well, let's back up for a second. Just everybody, and that's the interruption number one. But we do want to let people know that John is a recent retiree. That's why he's joining the club. What's it been, 2 weeks, John?
Yeah, June 5th was my last day.
Okay. So he's joining this club. So over the next few weeks, he'll start to feel a lot of the things that I felt, that Scott felt, or whatever. So, Scott wants to do, let's jump into. So, how did a guy from Millinocket, Maine, end up?
Well, can we go back to that, or do you want to start on the retirement or the music thing?
Whatever you want to talk. You're our guest today.
I'll just touch on that a little bit, because I think everybody's retirement quotation finger journey is going to be different, right? And all you can do is try to prepare a little bit. Try not to go nuts, over-preparing, overthinking. But Scott I think you said you gave all kinds of notice to the people in your inner circle at that work, like 9 months. And then the company, maybe not that much time. And Rick, you had a different reason for retiring. I basically was retired by my company. I mean, they had layoffs. A company bought the company I was working for a year ago, and they just started laying off whole teams. And so we knew it was coming. And my whole team got the notice the same day on the 5th. So that's a little different kind of launch point into retirement. So,
yeah.
I mean, then you have questions like, do I look for another IT job because I was in IT? Do I look for a part-time job doing something else? Do I just retire? My family's telling me, hey, just retire. You've been at it long enough. I'm as old as Scott and Rick here. We're all in the same age bracket. So retirement was certainly an option. So I'm not going to see myself go back into IT, but I might pick up a full part-time job here and there.
Can I ask you about, you threw out that you were retired. So, again, only say what you want to say.
I'm
How
a
are
smart
you feeling
ass.
about that?
That's just me being a smart aleck, but that's how I feel about it. I feel, bleep them in a way. Because it's in a 30-year, I was lucky enough to have a 30-year IT career, and that was my third time I got laid off. It's always some corporate restructuring. They don't give you a lot of details on why. You don't have to, you don't have to know. You're just a piece. You're just a cog in the giant machine, and you don't know. But that was a knee-jerk reaction. I don't really feel a lot of anger towards them. I mean, I'm lucky.
They were pretty fair with you, right? I mean, you had a good relationship with your boss, and they told you.
I like the people.
Yeah, and they told you it was coming, so at least you had some preparation. It wasn't like totally blindsided, right?
Yeah,
Which
and
can happen a lot.
I get a small severance package like that they're doing, and yeah, it could have been much worse. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying a visceral reaction is, oh, now you're forcing me into making some decisions maybe I haven't thought through. It's just. PTSD is too strong a word, but having been laid off and having to really hustle in the past, and then it's coming again, it was hard to just knock those feelings back and go, "No, this is different. This is just relax a little bit with it."
So how has week one been? Have you found any relaxation? Have you found any?
Well, you know me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna just go to the beach with a towel and get into a yoga pose. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, that's certainly I encourage that for people. But it doesn't feel really much different right now because, as you mentioned, we've all been working from home for years now. And with IT is one of those jobs where I worked. This last job was 3.5 years. I've never physically met anybody I worked with. They were in a different part of the country. We rarely put our cameras on, so I don't even know what some of the people I worked every day with, what they even look like. We just communicated through chat, this, that, and the other thing. So it wasn't a big social loss. And as far as the work, it wasn't extremely time-consuming all the time. But it forced me to be in my house and be online and checking mails and doing this and that for 9 hours a day. And that's when I started to say, well, is this really, at this stage of my life, what I need to be doing?
Yeah, and that's interesting. You can go down a whole path too of, is that good or bad for an individual to not know anybody, to not see anybody, to not really know how somebody feels about something, or see their personal reaction when they react to something you say in a meeting. That's really difficult, So I think, and that's a whole nother path you can go down. But I think if you know people better, it's harder to go into retirement, like where you didn't know people, you don't have those personal connections like you said, and that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, we joke about it sometimes. I mean, people I can take or leave them. I think most people feel that way. Any given day, I could take or leave them, especially work people you work with. And but I do miss it, and it does have a positive impact on how you get work done.
Yep.
In other words, you can send a couple of emails or a chat, and if you don't get an answer and that's day 2, you just walk over to their desk and say, "Hey, you got a second?" Or let's grab a room. Let's go whiteboard something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It definitely impacts the quality of work, I think.
Yep.
Not seeing people and not going into a location.
Yep.
You don't have to do it 5 days a week, 6 days a week, but
Yeah. Well, hopefully you come to a decent spot, in the next couple of weeks as you kind of figure things out. And my guess is you will.
I mean, I'm not in a bad spot now. I just say that as a knee-jerk reaction, like bleep it, here we go again. But it's not the same, and I'm fine with it. I won't know, I don't think, until another several weeks or month how I'm really doing, because some people made a good point, like, well, the first week or two, it's almost like you're on vacation in a way, but you're doing a staycation. You're at home, you're running errands. But for me, there's really not a ton of difference because I could run errands during the workday.
Yeah.
I ran errands. I took the dog for a walk. I came back. I could time it around meetings. I could time it around things I had to get done.
And you're off to Texas, right? And you're off to Texas?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going there. I'm going to see some family out there for a little bit. So
Cool.
traveling is going to be we're doing a trip in the fall. My wife and I are going to do a trip in the fall, and that we want that to be a big part. We've kind of done it all along, so we want to continue that.
Awesome. All right, so let's go back to the young John Brunette, Millinocket, Maine to Boston. How did that all come about, and let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't think it's as interesting as you were trying to make it seem in the intro, so I want to lower the bar on that a little bit. it's just this. Is that like anybody else's story? You kind of. It's never a straight line. It's rarely, I should say, a straight line to where you're going to go. You mentioned my father was in the Navy. He was a career guy, and he had retired and gone back to his hometown in a mill town in Maine, like an hour above Bangor. So really, just below Mount Katahdin. And I know there was a story there you guys got into. I'd like to come back to that but not now. So basically, I didn't have a lot of options probably. I had some. I didn't apply myself. I had no interest in high school in any of the courses. I like history a lot, something Scott and I have in common. Watched the Ken Burns American Revolution series. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it lasted as long as the war itself, though. It was a great series, but it actually lasted as long as the war.
You think the series was too long?
No, it was great. It was great.
All right.
But you have to invest a lot of time, and it was actually great.
Yeah, yeah.
But go ahead.
It's a good point.
Yep.
So I think I was talking. He got out. I started my ninth grade. I started high school in Bermuda at the Naval Air Station, and then my father retired. And I think I went to high school there for a month, and then I went to Millinocket, Maine. So I kind of felt like it might as well have been like a spaceship land in the parking lot at the high school, and me step out with a tan. And it was weird, but I have lifelong friends there now, so it all works out. But that was a transition. And then, like I said, I finished high school up there, I just had zero. I wasn't nothing. Thank God my kids are like smart and they studied and they're doing well. But I mean, it was a very. I'm looking for the word. My high school career was just. I played some sports and like anybody else, I got through it. So now it comes to, and I'm a last minute guy, as you guys know. Sometimes stuff runs up on me. So now what am I going to do the next year? So I had been playing my electric bass up in my room every day after school, and my mother was the one that said, "What do you think? What do you think about music?" Which really that got me thinking. So I started at University of Maine Augusta, went there for a year, and then I had a young guy was coming up and giving us bass lessons, individual bass lessons from Boston, because I guess they didn't have anybody there, even though that was a good jazz school, University of Maine Augusta. And this guy, Les, I still remember his name. He was just really cool, and he knew how to play, and he knew how to do slap bass and stuff, and interesting techniques. And then he goes, he was coming from Berkeley. I go, "What's that?" And the more I learned about it or heard about it, because there was no internet back then, you couldn't just jump on and know things. I looked at it, to answer your question, a long-winded way. I wanted to see what was what musically, where I kind of stood in it. And I kind of say, I mean, I went down there to kind of get my ass kicked a little bit. I knew it was going to be challenging in some ways, but I wanted to see, am I going to float? And I kind of did float. I mean, I think everybody finds their way and finds their group of people. So that's kind of how that happened.
But to get into Berkeley, you had to actually do a you had to perform, right? Didn't you have to do a tryout?
I mean, I'm trying to think back. If I did anything, it was very. There were so many kind of things where we had to perform in front of teachers to get through a certain regiment and progress. And I'm trying to think if I did one before I got accepted. And I think, if anything, it was like 10 or 15 minutes. Like, it was pretty basic.
Yeah.
They might have thrown some music in front of you and said, "Can you?" It was all about jazz. That was really about the only. There was no classical music like they have now, because the Boston Conservatory has been absorbed into Berkeley. There was no like bluegrass music or Americana. It was strictly jazz. So they just wanted to see if you could pull something off on the instrument. It wasn't that intense, the audition.
Yeah, but I think you're understating your talent, to the audience. I mean, you're obviously an extremely talented bass player, and this will come out when you talk about your experience with the Boston bands. But go ahead.
I mean, I appreciate that.
Yep.
I never look at it that way, because I just don't. I mean.
So talk a little bit about that. So you're in Berkeley. You and I
Yeah.
have had many conversations. What was it like? What some of the first bands you were playing? Why don't you For the old people that are listening to this, that are retired people that might have actually been in the Boston music scene back then, talk about some of the venues you played, and kind of just get to the point around like what the experience was like, and then when you had to make some painful decisions to maybe not follow that dream.
Yeah, getting through the school was good. There was a lot of good opportunities. It was interesting. I'll just go touch on that really quick. There was things I remember are like a guy basically getting yanked out of a class. He was a trombone player. He's there one week. The next week he's not, and he's playing with James Brown. There's a keyboard player in another class of mine. He ends up in Kool and the Gang. Now, meanwhile, I'm studying for my friggin' theory class. Then there's another kid that gets pulled out, and he's playing with Maynard Ferguson's big band at the time. The trumpet players were always getting pulled out. So the running joke is at Berkeley is, oh, you went to Berkeley? And I go, yeah, I graduated in such and such a date. It was 83. They're like, oh, we weren't that good, huh? So that's kind of the understated thing. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. I came out, and it helped. A degree is a degree, at least it used to be. And it helped me actually get interviews at places. The fact that I stuck with it and got, studied art history, I don't know. But that was a good experience there. And I came out, and can't remember exactly how it happened. But again, people our age understand it fully, but there was no internet, and there were no cell phones. And you had a phone on the wall in the hall of wherever you were living, and you had to wait for somebody to get off the phone that was fighting with his girlfriend or talking to his whatever, was mom, send more money. And it was tough to make connections, right? So you basically went out to bars, and you went out to clubs, and you saw what was going on, and you tried to make some connections and network that way. Or you'd look at the bulletin boards in the supermarket or at Berkeley on the music school and say, like, looking for a bass player. Pull a piece off and call the number. And then go audition, and it was started from there. That's how I got in a band. It was a female lead singer, Lynn LaPrade, really good, almost like a Pat Benatar voice. And the music was really kind of, for that time, it wasn't as tech or poppy with the synthesizers and the keyboards that everybody was doing, like the Cars were coming out. It was a new sound. It was cool. There was more stripped back with the two guitars, almost like the Pretenders, Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders. And I don't remember exactly, but I auditioned. They're like, yeah, I think you got the gig. And then that we were writing our own songs and we were really trying to get signed, trying to get a record label. Maybe we did one or two covers just to throw them in. But that was another weird thing. Your mindset at different times. To me, if a band was doing covers, I mean, was that really music, or was it not?
Right.
I have a totally different outlook on that now. Music's music, enjoy it, right? I'm much more open. But I don't think it was totally the school's fault, but I had a lot of maybe messed up ideas about what it was to be a musician. To me, either you were getting paid and making your living off being a musician, or you weren't really a musician. You were hacking.
What was the grind like in the early 80s, 83, 84, 85, when you were really in it as being a musician that's trying to make it? What's that grind all like?
Yeah, it's probably a lot of, well, there was no get really good and go on YouTube or write some songs and get on YouTube and get some interest and shop it. I'm not saying it's easy now. It's still damn hard to get any traction. And for anybody making it now, I take nothing away from them. You busted your hump to get where you are. I'm not trying to make it like that. But you couldn't get exposure unless you were playing somewhere. So the grind was you obviously had a day job. It's another joke we have. People that go to art schools is probably they should have had a minor in moving furniture and maybe getting your Class 2 license as a truck driver, maybe being a waiter. It's kind of a joke, but it's a reality.
Right.
Because you're going to have to hustle out there, and it's not going to be a career-type job. So I did that. I moved furniture my first 3 years out of college and played some gigs, and we made a little money. But any money we made, so you're saying, what's the hustle like? What's the grind? Pretty much any money the band made went back into
the band.
Paying for a rehearsal room. Because you couldn't rehearse in your house. Nobody had a house. So there were these big warehouse-type buildings where they segmented off rooms, and you'd just go in and rehearse. We were rehearsing 4 or 5 nights a week. And then working a day job, rehearsing 4 or 5 nights a week, playing pretty much every weekend somewhere. You
Where
remember?
were some of the places you
Yeah.
played back then?
So Brunette just comes to mind because that was like a classic, almost scary dive, but super fun. Always had good bands going in there. Barron's Whitfield and the Savages. I can't remember the name of this one band, this other band, but it'll come to me. But you look at some of the bands that were they were making it or you knew about. John Butcher, Axis.
You warmed up for them, didn't you? Didn't you warm up? For
Yeah,
John
well,
Butcher
we
Axis?
ended opening up for some like John Butcher, Axis. The Stompers were huge. Charlie Farron and Fahrenheit. Face to Face had an album or two, and I think it was just a networking thing where we knew a few of them. The woman that used to manage us and get us gigs knew people, and then we'd open up for those bands I just mentioned, stuff like that. So
Did you play at the Rat?
yeah, we did once or twice. It wasn't really the type of music didn't completely fit, and it was interesting though. So you go in the Rat, you're playing, and back then it was really punk, like original punk. I remember the waitress had like an actual giant safety pin in her cheek. And I thought I had been going around to clubs and kind of getting exposed to stuff. And that you go into places like that and you realize you haven't really seen it yet. And the bands there were hard, they were hard punk and I didn't feel at the time that musical. So, but I have a story about that later, about just different kinds of music having a different kind of meaning and purpose for people. But yeah, the Rat sometimes. I played the Paradise a few times, and this is not bragging or anything, because I think any bands that were gigging would get in and open for somebody or do something. You had the Paradise, you had the Channel, Rick, you
Channel's
mentioned.
huge.
That place was really like so fun. Great big stage, open up. We opened for this band Autograph that had been touring with Van Halen.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, we used to play bands that were doing college gigs, and those were fun. So that's kind of what it was like.
Right.
I mean, there's just a lot of clubs back in the day, as you remember.
Oh,
I'm
my
trying to
God.
remember them. There was a Club 3 in Somerville. There was Christopher's up in Porter Square. There was
The Jumbo.
Yeah, we didn't. You know what? That's a good point, because I knew about that lounge. But here's how that was my experience going in there, especially when I started to, because what you're doing is like you're trying to get your music together, you're trying to get your band together, but you also kind of have to get your look together, which I didn't know anything about. I thought when I got like a moderate, edgy haircut, I was, oh my God, everybody was looking at me, but I wasn't even close.
Right.
So I had to progress it. I ended up with a pretty damn good style there for a while, but
It's a lot better than the one you have right now.
yeah, it's pretty much gone at this point.
What's that have to do with the Jumbo? I'm confused.
Oh, good point. So, and I wouldn't call that interrupting, by the way.
No,
yeah,
I let you finish.
He's trying to
your
push a Tufts thing. So
No,
just
So the
answer
tu-
it.
I know that
no,
that's.
because the Jumbo actually had some good bands.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Were they like country bands, or what do you mean? What are you talking about?
They were from Millinocket.
Oh yeah, okay, it was country.
Yeah.
It was like the Outlaws, and it was like Leonard Skinner then. So that's what Millinocket was doing, which was fine. But I went in the Jumbo maybe once or twice.
Because you lived right there, right?
I lived in Somerville for a while, back before it became the Somerville that it is now. There was no train running through the middle of the city. You had to take like a train and two buses to get there.
How about e-bikes? A lot of e-bikes?
That's definitely a topic I think you and I can start.
Yeah.
We could go on a whole podcast. But I went into the Jumbo, and you just know it's not your scene. There's just a bunch of football player-looking guys that know that you're not really part of the community, and you're like,
Did you see Scott there? Because he would be one of those guys.
I
right?
know that's your alma mater, and it's a beautiful school. Nothing against it. It just wasn't our scene, really.
The Jumbo's not a school.
It was for some people. Yeah. It was right in Teal Square. I remember it, but I had the same feeling going into Kenmore Square with the Ark, and there was a couple other Celebration.
Oh, so yeah.
You go in there, it is.
Jason's, yeah.
Where is it?
Jason's right attached
didn't know
to
that one.
Celebration. It was more a disco club, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, Celebration was, and it's not your scene. You just, it's bouncers looking to beat people.
Hey, we're moving on, and we could
Yeah.
probably talk for hours here. But let's. So I got to know. You mentioned the Stompers. The Stompers were unbelievably huge back then, and I got to know those guys a little bit. And a lot of the people that you mentioned, they end up. Not many of them made it big. Some of them made it. Some of them got some record deals or
Yeah.
whatever. At what point did you get to the point where it was like, am I doing this? Is it a dead end for me? What do I got to do? I think at this point, you're with Celia. I don't know if you're married to Celia. Take us to that stage now.
I think like anything else in life, the best laid plans, go. You just roll with what comes at you. So it wasn't a plan. But what happens, I think, with bands a lot is they're hard to keep together. And I was in that one band that I mentioned for 5-6 years, which is a long run. We had some interest. We went in the studio, did some demo tapes. That's what you had to do. You had to rent studio time at like midnight so you could afford it, and then physically ship them to people so they could listen to your cassette and hope to get some interest in a showcase or something like that. So it didn't hit. We didn't get over the top with it.
How close? How close did you
You
get
never know.
in your mind?
You never know. I mean, we had people talk to us. I don't know how close that is, and I think that's the way it is. And there was a lot of really good Boston bands at the time. I mean, I could name O Positive, and some of them got some stuff. The Rain won a BCN. So to answer your question, part of it is your band starts falling apart. One guy gets married, that's fine. You replace him. Another guy moves to Maine. Fine, you try to replace him. It's like a 3 strikes thing, and if it happens in a short period of time, you start looking at each other like, man, this is like, if I have to do one more audition one more person, and that was a drag because you couldn't look at content they did online. You talk to them on the phone. You say, oh, there's a drummer coming down. I talked to him. He sounds pretty good. Maybe you heard a cassette tape of him. And I can remember this one drummer came in to audition for the band I was in, and he has like 3 guys helping him. That's how many drums are coming in. It's like Alex Van Halen, which wasn't our jam. And he's got 2 bass drums, and as a bass player, I'm like, what the? 15 tom-toms, there's cymbals. I'm like, I just put my hands up. I go, sorry, man, I hate to do this, but I don't need to see anymore. And I wasn't a hard guy like that, but I just knew. I'm like, that's not what we want. It's hard to keep a band together. That's to answer your question. And I went and I tried. The Rain was looking for a bass player, and they had just won the WBCN Rumble.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
Rumble.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and I know the drummer. Oh, wow, I didn't even really know he was in that band. I knew of him. He was at Berkeley. Had a good audition. They gave me some songs to listen to. And the drummer's like, yeah, man, this seems like good because, we need a bass player. And then I never heard from them. They've dissolved. That's pretty typical.
Right.
So maybe at the same time we were about ready to start having a family, and then you get into that mode. And I wanted to get back into it, but I went over 20 years before I picked it up again, more than 20 years.
And do you feel like you lost your love of music anywhere along the line? Like after you went through that experience, were you down on music? If you couldn't play at a certain level,
Yeah.
did that bother you?
Well, that's a really good question, but I think it was more of my perception of what success and what I wanted to do, which was you're either making it with a band and that's how you're paying your rent, or why bother? That was literally my mindset. And a lot of years went by. I'd pick up my bass. I'd start practicing. I'd look for something in a magazine because the internet, maybe on the internet, looking for bass players. And nothing looked like, oh, this is going to take off. But it took me years to kind of get over myself with that viewpoint and say, people are having fun playing music. And I started playing at a church. They did like a folk service. And then one of the guys goes, you have an upright bass, don't you? You should bring that. So from that, it was like an Americana country folk service for the church. And I started to meet people, and that's how I got into bluegrass. And that's when I started to really go, you could have fun doing this, even though you're playing cover tunes, bluegrass tunes, and there's people, and some of them are really good, some of them are okay. You can take a deep breath, dude, and just roll with it. But it took a while.
Yeah, I mean, you actually jammed with my son a little bit, and you were great with him. and I think that helped them out a lot. But I think I saw some of your love of music come back then, right? Just on the porch, just the
Yeah.
3 or 4 of us having a couple
Good
of beers.
story.
Yeah,
That's a good story. So we would have a few beers on your porch from time to time. And then your son was there. He's very talented. He writes songs, plays guitar. And you said, "Why don't you bring your bass over?" I hadn't played. You didn't. I hadn't played for anybody really. And I started playing again. I go, "Well, that was pretty fun." Yeah, you know what? It started to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit. It did. That was before I went and did these folk services
and
at church.
then one night we went down to the Knights of Columbus or something, and you guys, that was
Well,
funny.
you have a good memory. 'Cause
That was really funny. That was a great night. But anyhow, but
Yep.
the point being, I realized how good you were. I mean, because when you came over playing the bass, I go, "Is this a guy I play basketball with? Is this a guy who delivers water?" I go, "This is insane music. This is crazy." And then it hit me how good you have to be to make it, right? It's like I don't think people really have an appreciation for your talent level, and I think you're understating it. So, but anyhow, enough of the John.
I mean, I
John
appreciate
Brunette
that.
praise,
I
you know?
definitely don't feel like that, but I mean, because there's a lot of good musicians, singers, songwriters, and most of them, a very small percentage of them, get a record, make that a career, let's say, or for very long. So you have to kind of, if you love it, I look at it like a healthy addiction kind of thing. It doesn't make any sense on paper. I drive into Cambridge once or twice a week at a jam. I do rehearsals in Hyde Park, Jamaica Plain. I do gigs for no money. I do gigs like a Porch Fest, or I do gigs for some money. On paper, it definitely doesn't add up, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm on that journey.
But your love is back. Your love for music
think
is
so.
back to some extent, and that's going to help you on the back end as you go into retirement. I mean, that's a great outlet for you.
And I think as far as needing, having something, a pursuit in retirement is very helpful. I don't care if it's bird watching, which my wife has picked up now. I guess it's a thing that, once you hit a certain age, birds become very interesting. I don't know.
I think it depends on the kind of bird. Like pigeons aren't interesting to me, but I would say woodpeckers are.
Yeah, I mean, but could you do a pigeon call? Do you know how they sound?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't see the bird and you heard it, could you tell me what it was?
Maybe an owl. I could tell an owl.
That's not impressive.
John, where do you go? Where do you go with this now? You in retirement. So you've been starting your love. I think my recollection is probably the last 5 or 6 years you've started to get your love for the music back again, and you've been in a variety of different situations in terms of bands and stuff. So now that you have even more time, do you see this as what you're talking right now, finding some purpose and having an outlet, or do you even at your age say, "Hey, maybe see if I can run with this a little bit"?
Yeah, and I think it's I think that the reality is that's one thing in retirement that, or the last couple of years, is seeping in, like your age. And we go back to the networking thing, and part of me was just thinking, man, if you just kind of keep working and get your chops together and go out there and have some fun with people and connect. But what you see is people doing these higher end gigs, let's say, and then I look who's a bass player, and I'm like, what? That guy was just picking it up like a year ago when I saw him at this jam. I mean, he's, in my mind, I'm being a little judgy. I'm saying he's kind of serviceable, but and the reason is because he's hanging with the people and they know each other and they're friends, and he's good enough. And good enough is how some people make it. He's not bad. I don't want to make it like that. I'm using one example. But you can't look at just and say, "Oh, I'm better than that person playing. Why are they in that thing?" You could, but it's useless. You just have to get on your own thing and enjoy whatever you're doing. Not always easy. Some gigs are a lot more fun than others,
Do you have some plans already in the works with working with some people, or any events coming up or anything?
I mean, I have always gigs on the calendar. There's a brewery we do in Littleton. There's a thing coming up in mid-July, which is on the Swampscott Town Common with one of the bluegrass bands. There's places other places that we play. There's no grand plan to your question.
Right.
I think it's a good question, but I don't have a grand plan. I joke that I have a go bag in my closet. If I get a call or I get something really interesting, you don't have to wait for me. And my wife's aware of that. She highly encourages it, actually.
A long tour, right? She
Yeah,
wants you to
she's-
go on for months and months.
She packed the bag.
Yep.
Basically, is all you got to know. She has it packed for me.
She asked me to help her, so.
Yeah. But that's it. And it's, like I said, not any different than probably any other person that's playing music. And I would encourage people, actually, pick up an instrument. If you think you wanted to do it, what are you waiting for? Because I see all levels at these open jams, and it's not like you're not on a spotlight. You can sit there on the edge of the circle and just kind of play or just kind of sing. And I see a lot of people our age out there as new players, and I would encourage it big time.
Are you encouraging me to sing?
Yep.
Thank
Yep.
you. Because Rick does not encourage me.
I know you expressed an interest at one point, Rick.
Yeah, we've talked. With you and I have actually had some offline conversations on that. That is it too late to pick up an instrument? I've talked to you a lot about this. That I like to write songs. I got my own writings and stuff, but I've always missed that. What should I have picked up? We talked about. I asked your opinion. I'm like, hey, do I pick up a saxophone at 64 years old? Do I pick up a keyboard? Because I wanted to know from you, like, what's easier, what's harder, what's crazy. But yeah, I think, loving sports my whole life, the one thing I regret is not being a musician. I would have loved to have been a musician.
I would say there's no time like today. Go. What do you want to play? What do you love the sound of? Play that. That's it. If it's saxophone, the only thing I would say is, to answer your question, probably a higher entry point of making an actual sound on it where the dog doesn't want to kill itself.
Right.
But the piano, a little easier entry point.
Yeah, you mentioned just even get a small keyboard.
Get a little keyboard, a guitar, not bad. And some people say, oh, the bass, that's it's got 4 strings instead of 6, and it's I can thump something on, and it's got a low. I would say it's a low entry point, but to really get gigs, it's like anything else. You have to work at it.
All right, Scotty always gets worried about time, so I'm going to move a little bit. But I do want to finish with you as our guest here. Just a couple of thoughts from you, a couple of things that you're most excited about entering this retirement life, and maybe a couple of things that you're a little maybe anxious about.
I mean, the traveling is one thing I'm kind of looking forward to doing. Just making sure I'm spending quality time with people and maybe taking a breath and trying to relax a little bit and not being running from one place to another. You don't have that work schedule and work energy drain. That's the way I look at it. Even if I wasn't working hard, which I wasn't on my last job, I was in my house, as I said, for 8-9 hours, and it's an energy drain. You're not talking to people. It's odd. So I'm not going to miss that, honestly. And I wasn't getting social interaction really from it. And things I don't know. What was it? Your question, not looking forward to?
Is there anything you're anxious about or leave
Besides
unsure?
dying at some point?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one. That's right. Is it?
I mean, and again, Rick and I have gone down this path a little bit. It's age span versus lifespan.
Exactly.
Like how much, I mean,
Health span.
Yeah, health span versus lifespan. Like, how many good years do we really have left? Let's take advantage.
Yeah, don't ask that question.
Yeah, so and don't do the math, but we've gone down that path, right? And it's a real path. I mean, you definitely want to take advantage of the days we have left, the healthy days we have left, And you have to be cognizant of that a little bit, both in retirement planning and life in general.
Yeah, you really do. And I think we were talking about it. I think we were talking about it. I was talking with another friend about retirement may be the first time you actually feel what could happen. What's it? How many years do I have left as a healthy person? Because you just see during retirement that nobody's irreplaceable. I mean, I think you and I have talked about it. We knew that in our career. We knew we weren't irreplaceable. We knew we weren't, even though we had done things at work and it added up to something that was good. In the end, you're just a piece. And maybe that's a little cynical, but that's we haven't had a struggle with that. But you see when you leave a place, it just doesn't miss a beat. that's my experience. I think that's the experience probably for most people. That the place doesn't miss a beat, and that can be kind of hard. And then you start thinking, well, what about when I slip off the planet? Guess what? The things aren't going to miss a beat, really. Now your family's going to, they're going to have to plan something, maybe. I don't know.
Mine might be sad for a day or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You give them an afternoon.
Yeah.
But then they grill some hot dogs in the backyard.
And they'll be good.
Have some friends over.
Yeah.
A couple of beers.
I hope it goes that way, honestly.
I know. That's the perfect way to do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you don't mind, John, we got to jump into the weekly brewery review by Scott, and you also may even be as equal or maybe more experienced than Scott in this area. So feel free to chime in when he talks about the brewery review.
Yeah, and so I think you've actually been to this brewery, WB. I think so. I'm going to talk about Good Fire up in Portland, Maine. Right. So it originated in Portland, but their main spot now, they've switched it to Freeport, and the Portland spot is open for beers, but they primarily just make the beer there now. But it is open in Portland from Thursday to Sunday in the summer, and they have a couple my favorite beers. They have, and I think I say that every podcast, right? These are my favorite beers. I think I just like beer in general, But the two beers I really like there, one is called Prime, and sometimes you can get different variations of that. They have DDH Prime, they have Super Prime, whatever it's called. Then they have another one called Waves, which is excellent. And I'm not a sour guy. I think, WB, you're a sour guy. They have a couple of big sours one called Lutro that my daughter really likes, and one called Moon Jellies, I believe. So those get very highly rated, and they're classified as excellent sours. So that's one of my favorite spots. It's a good spot to sit outside. It's not right in downtown Portland. They have food at the Freeport spot. They don't have food at the Portland spot, but usually they have a food truck. I think dogs are welcome out on the patio. That's good for you. You can bring Goldie.
Yeah, I have a Greyhound.
Yeah.
I like Good Fire, and I like the Prime beer. I do like a fruited sour.
Yeah.
Like a straight-on sour is too tart for me, but the good thing about Good Fire also is you can walk over to Bellflower.
Right there, next door.
Bellflower
Yep.
Brewery is a street over, and I went there recently and got some fruited sours, and it's a good change-up from an IPA. I need to get something different on the palate.
Yeah.
I think you could just go IPA all day and night.
Yeah, although you and I talked about this on one of the podcasts. We went over and got a couple of Kolch's and a couple of Pilsners at a spot, and it was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that was in Amesbury, which I didn't know at the time. You said one day, hey, you want to go to Amesbury at Mill 77 and just go grab a beer? I'm like, oh, cool. It's like a date, and I was kind of excited about it. And
you did your hair.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. So I spent a little time on it. And then we get there, and then we go to the Sylvaticus or whatever the other one is. We walked over.
You pronounced it a lot better than he pronounced it.
I heard that.
I call it Sylvaticus.
I was wondering if you might need to bring someone in, check him for a stroke or something.
We were slightly concerned.
I was concerned as a listener.
I took some tests after. I was clean. Yeah.
But then I hear you talking about it on the podcast, and I'm like, oh, I guess it wasn't really kind of a date. I was just a +1 for your brewery.
You talk about
tour.
work people. You were a pawn in my game of breweries.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I would say Good Fire is a really good brewery to get to.
Yeah, nice to get validation.
So check that out, people. We have two people recommending that. John, we're going to finish with you a little bit on this.
I feel like it's been too much me already.
Well, you're
our
our
guest.
first
All right.
guest.
All right. I feel like
we have a
taking
second
advantage
guest
of
coming
that.
next week, and then we'll evaluate the
Okay.
guest thing on it. But John, one of the things that we talked about in basically episode 1 and 2 that I'd like to get your take as a new retired person is we spent a lot of time, and I know some people thought it was a little too touchy-feely or whatever, but when it comes to now being in retirement, you obviously are married, you have kids, you have grandchild now also. Where do you stand on the importance? You've mentioned it a couple times slowly tonight around social interaction and stuff, but where do you stand around the importance of friendships, the importance of being aware of loneliness and things like that as you head into this next? And again, it's only been a couple of weeks, but where you've probably given it some thought.
Yeah.
Can I get your thoughts on that?
Sure. It's supposed to be one of the top 4 or 5 things. You got to get your sleep. You got to eat right. You got to exercise, and socialization is big if you want to have that health span that you were talking about, Scott. And I mean, those are obvious things, but easy to forget. And I'm lucky to have my family around, and they're maybe an hour drive on some days. I'm very lucky to have that, and just keep. I think it's huge, and it's also when you say friendships, I always think like, what do you mean by a friend? Friends and acquaintances. I would broaden it to just get out there and get into situations where you're talking to people, whether it's like a volunteer opportunity. I know we spoke about that. I go to Cor Unum once in a while, and that's only 2 hours. It's not a major like contribution from me, but there's people running around, and more importantly, I think for us, young people, there's high school age people, college age people. You start to interact a little bit. I think that's huge if you can do it, to coach or something, whatever you can find.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to be looking for you to join our growing group in doing some things. I think when you get back from Texas or whatever, we're looking at getting some kind of a hike going, so that'll be great too. So, all right, John, any final words you want to give our listeners as our first guest?
No, I don't have any wisdom or anything like that. Go figure it out for yourself. You're doing a decent job on your own, kind of thing. My shoes are not your shoes. You stand in them, and people are figuring it out pretty well. Can I bring up a comment about the hiking? Because you keep bringing that back up.
That last comment was deep. That was yeah, that was profound.
I didn't have that written down.
I'm kind of digesting that.
Are you?
Yeah, there's a lot there, but go ahead.
Yeah. The Katahdin hike we talked about years back, and I had a similar reaction when we were going to go hike Mount Katahdin. This was years back. I felt like I was kind of the tour director and the organizer because I had been there and I knew the area a bit. I knew how hard it was to get parking. So I said, hey, I'm thinking of a couple of guys from church that I know are good hikers and they want to go. They've never been. And Scott pushed back on that a little bit, saying it's going to get odd. And then I think you brought up something like, well, hey, WB went to a concert with us and he didn't know the other person, this Jimmy Cat. To me, and I thought about that, and there's some relevant points on both sides, but to me it was like the escapability at the concert. I had control. I could walk off and grab a beer somewhere. I could go.
And you did.
Actually, I did.
You actually didn't even drive up with us.
I did, but that was I don't remember why I didn't drive up.
I think
you were working. You were working.
No, you had to go to Philly the next day for a wedding, or Pennsylvania for a wedding.
Yeah, he didn't want to stay all that late. Yeah, that's thanks. So, but in a Katahdin situation, you don't have that. And I know I was kind of like disappointed, but I totally understand. You're forced together with people that you can't just have that escape. You're on a trail for 11 hours hiking Katahdin. You're in you drive all the way up there. It's a different situation. Maybe we can explore it again, but it's not apples to apples.
So we'll revisit bringing the two guys from church at some other time.
I have to check and see if they're still alive. I don't know.
All right. So first of all, I want to thank John Waterboy Brunette for coming on as our first guest. It was great to hear his story, his failings, his thoughts. Obviously, he's a great friend of ours, and looking forward to his embarkment into this next chapter. So again, thanks everybody for listening to the 6th episode of Off the Clock. Again, thanks to John Waterboy Brunette. I am Rick Gorman. He is Scott Chandler, and we are Off the Clock.
Thanks, guys.